For years, the world of gaming has been at war. A war between superiority over who is best. The victor would, supposedly, stand triumphant over those who had lost, and claim champion above all. But like all great wars, the struggle is ongoing. The end is not in sight. The battles are frequent, often without a victor, and many have fallen without an offspring to take over. For this month, we take a look at all the warring factions and let you decide who reigns supreme overall. Welcome to War. The Console Wars. This is the Gaming Wildlife Foundation.
So why are we using a PS3 instead of a PS4 in this episode?
Well, from what I understand, a lot of PlayStation gamers are actually wanting to stick with the PS3 because it can still handle a lot of modern-day games fairly easily.
You didn't have money in the budget, did you?
What budget?
Exactly.
This week, we take a look at the PlayStation Gamer. The PlayStation was originally a joint project with both Nintendo and Sony at the helm. The console's origins date back to 1988 when Nintendo was trying to make a CD add-on for the Super Famicom using Sony's help. The partnership between Sony and Nintendo was broken while trying to figure out how the profits of the system would be divided by the companies. Sony then went on to create Sony Computer Entertainment in 1993, and 1 year later the Sony PlayStation was released in December of 1994. Wait, am I reading this correctly? It makes it sound like the only reason the PlayStation was made was to stick it to Nintendo because they couldn't agree on the profits.
Yeah.
That's incredibly petty.
Are you really surprised?
Well, I thought most American companies would hold themselves to a higher standard than that.
These are not American companies. You idiot.
Well then, for more information on PlayStation gamers, we go to our expert from the University of Gaming's head of the PlayStation Studies Department, Andy Residence.
PlayStation has one of the most balanced and diverse fan bases the world over. This has, of course, given the group a smug sense of superiority over the others.
Stop saying that.
But it's true! The PlayStation was originally a collaborative effort between Nintendo and Sony, so it made the early years of the system feel very similar to the early years of Nintendo. In fact, Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon were meant to be PlayStation's mascot counterparts to Sega's Sonic the Hedgehog and Nintendo's Mario and Link.
Don't you mean Mario and Zelda?
No.
Well, I mean, the game is called The Legend of Zelda. Wouldn't that mean that the main character is actually... Ow! What?
Shut up and let the smart people talk.
Anyway, PlayStation gamers are so diverse because of how adaptable they've become over the years.
What do you mean, adaptable?
Well, Sony has always sought to make the systems more than just a video game console. Since they've always had a hand in developing CDs and DVDs and Blu-rays, they were able to incorporate those technologies into the consoles to get more than just gamers to buy their systems.
Well, that's fine for people who don't like video games, but were there things that would appeal directly to gamers?
PlayStation was very similar to Nintendo during its early years, so a lot of Nintendo's third-party developers began transferring their IPs over to Sony because Sony made the better system. In fact, Capcom and Squaresoft were especially notorious for this, as the Mega Man and Final Fantasy franchises became PlayStation exclusives for years following its launch. Save for the Nintendo handhelds and a few games here and there.
Wait, they stole Nintendo's games?
That's what Nintendo gets for not cooperating with Sony. Sony steals their IPs, and Nintendo is left with half-assed Philips CDI Zelda games.
Well, that's just mean. How could they stoop so low?
Business.
Stop saying that.
Now, what really established Sony as the everyman console wasn't the stolen IPs. Every system has doubled as a multimedia player. The PlayStation 1 could play CDs, PS2 could play DVDs, PlayStation 3 can play Blu-rays, as well as streaming online media services such as Netflix and Hulu, and the PlayStation 4 can also do those things.
But what does that have to do with the gamers who play PlayStation?
As I said, it made them adaptable. Sony wanted to make themselves a true rival to Nintendo, so they were very kind to third-party developers. This decision has gifted their systems with a wide variety of games that would appeal to almost anyone. In fact, you don't even have to be a gamer to use the systems. You could use your PS3 to listen to music, or watch movies, or check the latest updates on your Hulu shows, more often than you play games.
So somehow Sony made the most inclusive system ever.
Exactly. The PlayStation 2 is still the highest selling console of all time simply because of how versatile it was. Any gamer can use a PlayStation. Any person can use a PlayStation. Think of it as the gateway console to show you just how diverse gaming can be.
You have run into a minor problem, though.
And that is...
Well, because anyone could be a PlayStation gamer, it doesn't exactly give them a strong sense of identity, now does it?
That is a big problem with the PS4. You see, the system could easily outperform its competitors, but only about 10% of its games are PlayStation exclusive. You could play most PlayStation 4 games on an Xbox or a PC, if you so desired.
So I suppose to beat PlayStation, we would need a system that has a better sense of identity among all its people. Perhaps they could have a catchphrase to give themselves a better smug sense of superiority over others.
Like calling themselves the Gamer Master Race?
Oh my god, that sounds terrible. No one actually does that, do they? Oh! Oh. Well, we'll see you next week.